everyone, and welcome to another book vlog from me, Traci Harding, and I'm here to talk to you about my fifth book in the Ancient Future series called Tablet of Destinies. This was the second book of the Celestial Triad. It was released in 2001 through HarperCollins Publishers, and it was also released on ebook a bit later on, I think probably about 2006 or something like that. And it's also available on audio. So the concept for this book, Tablet of Destinies, was a natural roll-on from Chronicle of Ages, because Chronicle of Ages kind of filled in the gaps in the first trilogy, and this book was really moving into the new story of the chosen on Kyla and how they were dealing with their Nephilim forefathers and being in the Pantheon of 12 as the human representatives, and they were given a hard time. There's a very groovy scene in this book where Brian and Rune take on a Lemurian mutant, which was a lot of fun. Also, we're dealing with, besides dealing with the Nephilim, we're dealing with all the different human races, the Leoline race, the Delphinus race, the Falcon breed, and centaurs. And we go to visit all their planets in this book and what's going on with them and the Nephilim. Of course, they're all being exploited, just like humanity was. Also, we go back to ancient Eden, to the beginning of it all and the beginning of humanity. And so to me, it seemed like a natural progression of where to take this book, because we needed to delve back into the origins and all those mysterious races that were mentioned in the Bible and ancient texts and so on, and explore those and the Chosen's relationship to their incarnations in those races. So the research on this one was fairly intensive, because besides all those races and the gods that I was talking about before, oh, and pirates. We had space pirates in this one too. They were with the Falcon breed. But also we went into David Chan. So we're sort of going into the different levels of consciousness. So there was a lot of research, and I'll actually go. I got a reader question about the different bodies, or astral, like the different planes of man, bodies of man, and I've done a piece on that, which I'll get to a little bit later in this blog. But as far as the research goes, it tended to move in like whole series of books. Some of the books I found most helpful. The first one is, they're practically all theosophical texts too, because they're the only texts that really go into these kind of, like David Chan, the different bodies of man, different planes of existence, different races, the Nephilim, etc. And as far as the different bodies of mankind, this is a treatise on cosmic fire by Alice Bailey, who was with the Theosophical Society. She used to channel a lot of information from Dwal Kul, who comes up in the next book, The Cosmic Logos. But I remember reading a piece in this book, and don't ask me where it is, it's a very thick book, but it just was very heart-opening for me. It was just like a major revelation. The way she writes is so beautiful. It's a little bit out there. It's kind of a little bit heavy sometimes, but once you get into the flow of reading it, it's actually very beautiful. So I found her book very helpful for all sorts of, the solar system, bodies of man, etc. And all these books I'm going to mention were, which is why I can't exactly tell you. I think it was Gavin asked a question this week about when Tori dies and her body reforms, like all the different bodies. And I cannot remember for the life of me which of these writers I got that from, but I did get that directly from research. So it wasn't coming out of my head. It was actually theosophical doctrine. So the other one, of course, you cannot go into Theosophical Doctrine without talking about Blavatsky, The Secret Doctrine. There's 2 volumes of this, and it also might have come out of here. Very heavy-duty reading, but very interesting because she was actually talking in terms of quantum physics without using the same terminology as later came along with all the scientists. But because I've read Blavatsky, I found it much easier to understand quantum theory. So, yeah, that's interesting. Now, the next series of books was Arthur E. Powell, and he did a whole series of books on the different bodies of mankind, up to the causal body, which is into the middle. So you'll see this when I play the piece that I actually did on the bodies, planes of man. But these books, you've got the etheric double, which goes into all the functions of the etheric double, the astral body, the mental body, and the causal body. And they were all very interesting. He has another one called the solar system as well, which was about all the different rounds of humanity on different globes, as in different planets, Mars, Venus, etc. Which, again, very interesting. Now, another series that I ventured into were these books, and there's quite a few of them. And these are by G. Prunkta, I think that's how you say it. So I've got Galaxy, Solar Systems, Their Genesis, Structure, and Destiny. Yes, they're fairly heavy books. Hierarchies and the Doctrine of Emanations. Visible Worlds and Their Invisible Worlds and Their Inhabitants, which was very good for like the diva races, the lower diva, like fairies, etc. The Hierarchy of Compassion, this is your 7 rays, etc. Doctrine of the Spheres, which is kind of going into the globes and stuff that I was talking about, A. Powell talking about. Death and Circulations of the Cosmos, 1 and 2. Now, that could also be where the restructuring of the bodies came from. I've had a quick look through these books this morning, and I just can't figure out which one I got it from. But there you go. And finally, with the Nephilim and the background on them and their history, Zachariah Strichen, whom I've mentioned before. The Cosmic Code I used, When Time Began. Wars of Gods and Men is one of my favourite. It's got a great timeline in here too. And The 12th Planet, which was the original book where he found the Sumerian text and he translated it. And before they'd even discovered there was like Pluto and planets way out there, he'd actually deciphered Sumerian texts that actually explained all the planets and what they were made up of, and they described them from the outside in, like starting at Pluto and then coming in ways, which is very interesting if you're talking about extraterrestrial beings, because of course they'll be coming from the outside moving in. So yeah, that was all the research. There was a lot more. All the books are listed in the back of Tablet of Destinies if you want to check them out. I found most of them at the Adyar bookstore. as again, I'm kind of combining the themes and the reader questions for this vlog because they all kind of blend in together. And I've kind of answered, Gavin had quite a few questions this week, and I've kind of answered the first one, which was about where did that, where Tori's body was reforming, how much of that was out of my head? Well, none of it, because I researched that quite heavily, the bodies of man. And so I wanted to get that as close to esoteric doctrine as I could, which is why I researched it so heavily. The second question you had was about ORM and the which is orbitally rearranged monatomic elements, which is a thing. ORM is also equated to mana, ghost gold, the alchemist's key, the philosopher's stone, and my original information on ORM and how it was rediscovered came from a man called David Hudson, who was just a simple farmer, but he kept coming across this ground that was very, very hard. And he discovered this gold on his property that I can't remember why he ended up going in and investigating. You can look him up anyway, David Hudson. But what they discovered was when they took all the elements out of this gold substance, that it actually defied gravity, and when it was heated to a certain state, it would disappear. And then when it cooled, it would come back. So it was kind of going through that 0-point field energy. So he became involved with a lot of the 0-point field research as well that you'll find in Lynn McTaggart's books. I think she may even mention David in there. So he definitely was the rediscoverer of it. They used to use it in ancient times as a quickening solution, and it was believed that it heightens spirituality, heightens psychic gifts, and it does. But then later on, when I was researching for the Dragon Queens, which is another series altogether, I read some more articles on ORM, and it was saying how it actually can damn the spirit, as in trap the spirit in the body rather than the other way around. So it's not actually making you more spiritual, it's actually damning the spirit in the body. But I can't remember offhand right now where I got that information from. I might, when I get to the Dragon Queens, I'll discuss that further. But yes, David Hudson is where I originally found all my research for ORM. Having a look at all the research books I used, you can see that actually it was very much drawn from there. I don't do a lot of embellishing on esoteric doctrine. I'd rather research it. And it's how it blends with my story rather than my imagination. I just get my characters to bring out the facts in a fun, interesting way. Actually, I had no idea that I was ever going to the dark universe or that I was going to explore the Grigori, because, I mean, every time I finished one of these trilogies, I thought that was it. I kept thinking, no, that's it. I finished with that story. And then, bang, we'd be in another universe, or they'd start, jumping back in time or learning new ways to actually do that, move through time, or inhabit reincarnations, etc., etc. So yeah, and I mean, when I the Grigori story was that a lot of that did come from my imagination. There's not a lot of reliable information about the Grigori from, but yes, at this point I really didn't have too much of an idea of what was going to be happening with the Grigori in the future. So, Emma, on the subject of Melwyn, when he revisited his time with Anana and why I didn't really go too deeply into how she abused him, I think that time had really moved on for Melwyn. He'd kind of recovered from that, and he had, through dealing with the Nephilim, I think he'd come to a better understanding of the fact that, quite often they had no idea what they were doing emotionally because they were emotionally so immature, even though they were very mentally developed. And I think that's why he goes out of his way to help her, because it is going to help her develop emotionally. And because she has this kind of attachment to him, despite the fact that she abused him, she still has an attachment. So he was the one to really help her open up her emotional body. So it was quite purposeful that we didn't go too much into the torture, because that was really just going to be making her regress by making her feel guilty and so forth and so on. She was already in a lot of pain because she kept losing children. So yeah, I think really he was there to help her heal. Um, No, I haven't actually, because those books have already been written. I'm not really a factual kind of writer. I don't really want to do nonfiction. I like doing my work in fiction because basically, if there's any themes in my books, and because I put all the research books in the back, if there's anything in there that you want to go and research further, you can do that. And those books have already been written by Blavatsky, by Alice Bailey, by all those wonderful authors I just showed you in the research section. So, me personally, that's not really my thing. Although, with doing these vlogs, I have started to pick up on certain aspects, like with the last Vogue Chronicle vlog, the Chronicle of Ages. I did a piece on soulmates and twin flames, and in this one, I'll be doing a piece on the seven bodies of man. So I'm kind of getting my interpretation of the information out there without actually having to write books on the subject, because I think a lot of really great books have been written, and you'll find them in the back of my book. So, I've just put together a piece on the planes and the different planes and bodies of mankind, and so hopefully that will help a little bit. Here it is. The seven planes, or bodies of awareness, are various levels of energy that resonate at different vibratory rates. What level a soul mind frequents will depend on their own personal sonic frequency. The planes, or bodies, are states of consciousness directed and brought into being by the soul mind for its own personal schooling. Hence, everything is relative to the observer. I put together this graph as a visual tool to the planes or bodies of existence. Now imagine these planes encircling each other. Then imagine these circles are all spheres, each interpenetrating the others. There are depicted seven planes here, but each of these have seven subplanes, and each of those have seven subplanes, making hundreds of levels of existence for a soul mind to inhabit within the etheric world. But let's have a closer look at density and the seven major planes or bodies of awareness and expression. Density is a level of consciousness of a much lesser degree than most of the soul minds frequenting the physical plane. The higher levels of the lower etheric realm might be associated with the underworld or purgatory, and the lower levels of the lesser etheric plane would be equated to hell or the dark universe. The physical plane or body is the material world or body that we inhabit. It's one of third-dimensional matter that the Celts called the Middle Kingdoms, as it is between the underworld and the other world, where matter is held together by thought energy. The astral plane is the second body of the earth and humanity, which is vibrating faster than the physical world. It's free from the law of gravity and time. It's the realm of the Fae, the other world, where our dreams unfold and play out. The mental plane is the third body of the earth and humanity, composed of thought and where all negative thinking has been eradicated, where abstract thought is formed into ideas and blueprints for manifestation. The causal plane is the realm of wisdom, constructive thought, imagination, and inspiration, where the form is shed to become formless, where genius is filtered down to the planes below. The spirit plane is the realm where the self is shed to merge with the soul group in preparation for becoming one with totality. This is near perfection, where soul groups motivate earthlings to do that which is in their highest good. The monadic plane is where the monad begins and ends the necessity for using a soul mind as a vehicle for its evolutionary cycle. The vibratory frequency that triggers involution, the urge to merge back into source. And the seventh plane is God consciousness, nirvana, the highest conceivable level of spiritual attainment, perfectness, supreme happiness, the sovereign integral. So I hope that was a bit helpful. In conclusion, what that means is that, say you were on the earth plane, because all the planes interpenetrate each other, if you were a genius, you would be living on the earth plane, but spiritually you would have access to, say, the causal realm, where all the greatest information comes from, or inspiration rather. If you were a very cerebral, like scientific kind of person, you're probably got greater contact with your mental body. If you're a very spiritual person, if you're a medium, if you're talking to spirits and so forth, then you're probably accessing the astral realm, higher astral realms. Obviously, if you're a Satanist, then you're going to be delving into density. But that's what I mean by all the planes interpenetrate each other. From here, probably the highest you could get to from the earth plane would be about the causal realm, which is like Buddhic consciousness. Beyond that, we don't know. That's where you've got your master rays and stuff. But I hope that was helpful. Now, next up, I've got the audio excerpt from Belinda Audio, which in this case is read by Benedict Hardy. And thank you, Belinda, for letting us use it. And here it is.
The celestial entity originated in a realm beyond physical existence, beyond the astral worlds of Anwen through which Tori had ventured on occasion, and beyond the mental realms of existence through which Tori had yet to pass in a conscious state. This entity called the causal level of awareness home. From this celestial plane, his kind resided over the highest mental realms of human soul-mind activity, a level of consciousness known as Deva-chan. He described Deva-chan as the happy place, where human souls resided in between their first incarnations. Here, the effect of a human soul mind's admirable earthly aspirations finally found their cause and were realized to perfection. The being had said he was of an order of Devanic entity known as the Dhyan Chohans, the builders of consciousness. Able to function on many different planes of existence at once, Dhyan Chohans were of the highest order of Devas. The fairy folk of the other world made up the lower orders of Devas. Dhyan Chohans perceive the will of the divine and then aid the planetary spirits to implement change in creation. The Deva had activated his Rupa body, Rupa meaning having form, to appear to Tori in the physical realm. This was not a solid physical body, however. It was a gigantic but vague astral form resembling one of the Deva's human charges, which she had recognized as her husband, Maelgwyn. On the mental plane of awareness, the Deva took the form of numerous ethereal cocoons, where its human charges resided between physical incarnations, living out unrealized dreams in preparation for the next physical life. On the causal level of awareness, the Deva's home, he employed a formless or arupa body, which bound him to the host of the Dhyan Chohans. On this level of awareness, the higher souls of humankind would reunite with the divine and begin their apprenticeship in one of the many Devanic races, in the hope of one day graduating to become a planetary logos, or guardian. Her heart seemed to be exploding with love and happiness. Tori could literally feel these energies flowing forth from some hidden inner universe within her heart center. This pure life force strengthened every particle of her being and then continued to flow out of her and into the clearing beyond. It seemed that her own aura was expanding, and as it did, it empowered everything it engulfed. So abundant was the divine energy that emanated from her, Tori felt she could have filled the planet, the star system, even the galaxy with it. She had never felt more invincible in her life. Remember this feeling, Tori Alexander, and draw upon it when you feel tempted to question your lot. You of all beings have no need to fear, and certainly no need to seek out one of my kind. For you have a direct link with Akasha, the full memory of allied logoi. The tablet of Destinies. Tori began to fondle the small three-sided pyramid that hung on a chain about her neck. This was made of the pinkish metal known as auriculum, the strongest substance known to the ancient civilizations on Gaia. Taliesin, High Merlin of Britain, had given Tori the ancient divining tool before he descended back towards the Logos to assume his place in the higher scheme of things. As all had been so peaceful since setting foot on Kyla 50 years ago, Tori had been given no reason to consult the sacred tool. All people have the divine guidance of their Logos, but only you have access to the central sun of the allied chain Logoi. The central sun? Tori wondered out loud, and she was instantly blinded by a vision of a large, whirling vortex in space. The galaxy, she clarified, whereupon she was overawed by her realization. I have access to the Akashic records of the entire physical galaxy. The Deva nodded surely. And all that has, is, and will take place therein.
So that's about it for this vlog. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it insightful and helpful. And there will be another one next month. We'll be doing Cosmic Logos. I think next month. I don't know how much I'm going to be posting in December, January. I will be posting randomly, but it won't be as regular as it has been over the last 6 months, because the writing tutorials are finished now. I've got a few author interviews to get up, and I would like to continue to do one of these book vlogs a month. But I really feel like I need to be focusing on writing as well. I think you would like me to do that. So we'll just see how it goes. But thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. I always appreciate that. If you'd like to support me on Patreon, links below. If you need to buy one of my books, links are below, and or a mentor session, etc. And thank you so much for tuning in. And I'll see you next time. Bye.